Hi everyone, my name is Nola.
You're welcome.
Um, I am the technical manager for this session titled From Data to Decisions, Making Sense of Nutrition Sensitive Agriculture Indicators. And it is chaired by Kat Pittore, Diane Bosch, Elise Telsma, Marielle de Jonge, Beatriz Neves, Valeria Pecchioni, Sarah Harris, and Indre. Thank you for taking part in ANH 2026, and we look forward to a robust and interactive session today. A quick reminder that everything that you might need to access for the conference materials and program can be found on the ANH Academy website. Before passing it over to Kat, who will take the conversation forward, just a few technical announcements to ensure that we have a smooth experience moving forward. First, the session is recorded and it'll be posted on the ANH Academy website before the end of the conference. All participants will be muted on entry, but please do introduce yourself in the chat and then let us know your name, where you're joining from, and the organization that you work with. We encourage you to share your video if your connection allows it. And if you have questions, please share them in the chat. And if you have any other technical issues, you can message me directly, and I can try to help you out. Or you can always try to reconnect using the same Zoom link that you joined with the first time if you have any other issues. Uh, any other questions, please do message me, and I'll pass it over to Kat now. Thanks so much, everyone.
Apologies. Thank you very much, Nola, and thank you all for joining this session. And maybe just a quick disclaimer, in the process of developing this session, we ended up shifting the focus from nutrition-sensitive agriculture indicators to nutrition-sensitive indicators more broadly. So we're hoping to cover a much broader scope in this session. And as Nola helpfully introduced, we have a great range of participants and fellow facilitators here today. So we're going to have an opportunity to really interact with everyone during today's session. We really hope that you can stay with us for the whole time and that you can really share what you're thinking. There's lots of time for people to discuss, and we'll have a lot of group work later in the session. So today's session, I think we already had these few announcements from Nola. The session is recorded. Please do participate. We really view this as an exchange. So we also very much want to learn from you. Everyone here we know are experts as well. So we're looking forward to learning as much as we can, not just telling information. Please raise your virtual hand if you want to make a contribution. And just to note, the first part of the session will be more us giving information, and the second part will be more interactive. So there will be opportunity then to really start exchanging. So for the first part, maybe try to keep your questions, but there'll be plenty of time to interact with the facilitators. And make sure your microphone is muted unless you're speaking, as a general logistics. And what this session will look like today, we're going to start with the human spectrogram. So we're very interested to hear your thoughts on some statements around data and using data to make decisions. And hopefully we'll ask some ranking questions. I'll share a Menti in a moment and be happy to, if you jump off mute, and share why you gave that ranking. We will then have 5-minute pitches from 4 different case studies. So I have an example from my colleague in the room from AT&I on the product profile dashboard that we're ranking the largest food and beverage companies and their commitments to addressing nutrition. We will have the Netherlands Working Group Indicator Guide on Food and Nutrition Security. We'll have a country level monitoring from the Cascade project brought to us by CARE Netherlands, and then the food system dashboard shared by GAIN Netherlands. And we'll have 5-minute pitches for each one of those, followed by an opportunity to dig deeper. So during the pitches, think for yourself, which session would I like to attend? There'll be an opportunity to attend 2 cases. So there'll be 30 minutes per case and then a rotation. There'll be a 5-minute break in between because we know 2 hours is quite a long time to be sitting on screen. After the break, there'll be an opportunity for a second rotation, and then a very short report back and reflections and final closing at the end. Very briefly to introduce ourselves, we have the Netherlands Working Group on International Nutrition, the NWGN. It's a network organization based of organizations in the Netherlands working on the field of international nutrition. So all of us here are members of the NWGN, and Diane and myself are the current co-chairs of the organization. It brings together stakeholders from what is known as the Dutch Diamond, so civil society, knowledge institutes, private sector, and government. And we aim to increase the nutritional impact of Dutch stakeholders working throughout the food system by exchanging knowledge, supporting stakeholders to better include nutrition in their policies and work. If you want to find out more, here's a link to our website. If you're a Dutch-based organization working on the food system and you're not yet a member, feel free to get in touch and you can join us. And to get started today, I have a Menti. So you can either go to menti.com and enter the code 26497384 or scan the QR code. And I am going to quickly shift to my Menti and start presentation. Is everyone seeing the Menti? Being presented now? Yes, waiting for some respondents. Okay, I see people are getting in there. Okay, there was a better data always leads to better decisions, and now it's shifting. Ooh, this is like the horse races. AT&I will improve nutritional quality. Oh, that's shifting more towards strongly. Oh, no, it's going back. Biggest challenge is not lack of data, but choosing the right indicators. Okay, give it. Interesting to see it feel like maybe shifting towards a center. Although seems to be the data questions around AI and data quality definitely seems to be emerging lower. And I would be interested to hear, we still have a few people responding, for someone who said more data always leads to better decisions, because I saw when we first started, the first 2 or 3 people that answered that question gave a 5. Does anyone who answered with a 5 want to unmute and tell us why? Otherwise, I'll just start randomly calling on people. It's always that option as well. Anyone want to share why they gave a 5? More data is always better decisions. No. Diane, I know you had some views on this. Do you want to share your perspective? We were discussing it. Oh, you're on mute.
I was looking to quickly unmute myself. Yes, thank you very much, Kat. Yes, I think more data doesn't per se lead to better decisions. And that's a little bit, you need to put it in this perspective, is more data is, there's 2 things. More data in one, if you collect data from one indicator, if you have more respondents, so more data for that indicator, that's better. Also depends a little bit on the indicator. But you can also say we are collecting a lot of data on different indicators that often is far too much to handle in the time span that you have. And then more data doesn't always lead to better decisions because you're sort of drowning in data. But we know that more data on one indicator, often like from national level, district level, local level, does leads to better decisions. So it's a little bit how you interpret more data.
Okay, so mixed answer. Depends how you're viewing more data. Okay, great. Anyone else? Valda, I see you. You're a colleague. I can pick on you. I am a data analyst. What do you think? What do you believe? More data, better decisions, always? As a data person? No, I don't hear Valda.
No.
No. Indira, what do you think?
I am actually the one who voted for 5 because I think that it depends on, like Yan said, it depends on what it means by better decision as well as leading to. Because if we don't have data then like it's always going to be biased, and the decisions that you make can be either be better for the other person or the another person. So from my point of view, I focus more on the leading part rather than having a lot of data with what we are going to be drawing on, which I also agree on that, and also what I'm going to be presenting for the product profile dashboard as well. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we do need data because without data, how do you make any decisions? But there's a
Yeah.
question of what exactly are we leading to? How are we using that data? I saw some thumbs up while you were presenting there. Great. Is there anyone who gave a very low score to more data always leads to better decisions?
Actually, I did.
Oh, great. Elise?
Yeah, well, I think more data does not necessarily lead to better decision. I think we need better data.
Okay,
Full stop.
better data.
Yeah.
I think that comes a bit down to, and I think that we'll get into in our case study example, the challenge of data, especially around food. Oh, I see people are agreeing. So better data, questions around bias, how, and I think the definitions, how are we defining better decisions? Great. Okay, anyone else want to weigh in here? Or shall we shift quickly to AI will significantly improve nutrition data quality, which is definitely towards the lower end of the spectrum. Basically, yeah, nobody gave it a 5, I think. So there definitely is some AI skepticism here. Does anyone want to share why they are skeptical of AI in improving our data quality? Oh, yes, a hand. Whose hand is this?
Nola.
That's me.
Nola.
I'm happy to share what I think about that. I haven't used AI very much, I'll admit, in this kind of thing, but I think of it similar to any other model, garbage in, garbage out. So depends on what you're putting into it, and it's not a given that it'll make things better.
Okay, so similar to what Elise is saying, also better data, and AI will only be as good as the data that we're putting into it. Does anyone think AI could be more positive?
We have
Grace.
another hand.
Oh, another hand. I see Grace also made a comment. Grace, do you want to come in? Let's see the other hand.
It's
Oh,
from
yes, I do.
Anjali Ganalu.
Hi,
Gan.
Anjali. Anjali.
Anjali. Sorry,
Yeah, that's easier.
apologies.
Okay, no issues. So this is my thinking on the prior question. What I feel regarding AI, it depends on what you are using it for. I'm a nutritionist, so sometimes I have used it for food environment related analysis. So if there is no local data available, then it's very good to have some reference. But if local data is available, then I would say no to AI. So it's again depends on what you are using it for.
Mhm. And depending on what else is available as well. I think that's
Right, right, absolutely.
a good point that, and I think we are also, yeah, using AI maybe to fill in gaps when you don't have data is different than using, yeah, AI in other contexts.
Yeah. And then we
Great.
have a feedback from Grace. She said more evidence rather than data.
More evidence rather than data. And then what is evidence, Grace, if we can ask? Maybe you're not able to speak now.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hi, this is Grace.
Oh, hi,
It's
Grace.
just to agree, yeah, it's just to agree with the other person that talked about better data. So there's data that is not relevant, and the other person that talked about garbage in and garbage out. So if it's real evidence, yes, and you need more of that, for validation. But if it's just data that it's not relevant or it doesn't provide any evidence, then you don't need more of that.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I think there's this risk now of that sort of, we just become overwhelmed with content generated by AI that doesn't help anyone and is just too much and is using bad quality data or hallucinating. Yeah, and I think that could significantly increase moving forward. Okay, great. Thank you very much for those inputs. The final challenge question we had is around the biggest challenge is not lack of data, but choosing the right indicators. This is much more towards strongly agree. Does anyone want to jump in here why they agree or disagree? Shall I ask one of my fellow facilitators? Maybe Sarah, do you have a view?
We have a hand in the meantime from you.
A hand. That's exciting.
First the hand then.
Do the hand first. Okay. Diane, can you see the hand?
Yes, it's by you. By
Madam,
you.
for your reason to me for AI significantly improve nutrition. I will introduce myself. My name is Ahmad Bayu Aryawan, the alumna of Animal Science faculty member, Halu Oleo University in Kendari, Southeast Sulawesi. For AI, with significantly improved nutrition data quality, I tried Nutri AI from Indonesia, who applied which ensure the data nutrition data for make the menu on hospital in food service on food service in hospital or in Indonesia like makan bergizi gratis. uh, I try to um, I try to take about the menu, and if I take it, uh, the data will be not synchron because the data or the keyword for the menu is not uh, is not is not correct or influently not correct in with AI. So I will learn about the synchronization of AI and nutrition data.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think the good point around human oversight as well, that we also have to have
Welcome,
humans
madam.
thinking if this is logical. Thank you very much. And we have a hand from Swetha, I see.
Hi, this is Sweta Manohar. Nice to meet you all. So I was just thinking about the last point about, it not being about having enough data, but instead the right indicators. And yeah, I think when we're thinking about decision making, ultimately as researchers, we're not making those decisions, right? And so having a slew of indicators and, it's always great to measure everything, but not everything can be acted upon. And I think helping policymakers and those that are actually involved in the governance of our food systems choose the right indicators that are actually actionable is continues to be a bit of a challenge, and I guess that's what this whole learning lab is about. But yeah, so that's why I strongly agreed with that particular statement.
No, I think that's a very valid point. And I think as researchers, it's always a tendency to say we need more data, we need more research. And policymakers want to say, yeah, okay, but now what? What do we do? What do we do with the data? So I think very valid point. And I see another hand from Ifoma. Is that a correct pronunciation?
Yes, you're right. Very correct pronunciation. So I just want to add just something very little to what the previous speaker just said, um, related to ensuring that the data is not just about having a lot of data, but making sure that the data has the right indicators that will guide decision making. And I just want to add something very little to that to say the indicators should also be context specific to the local context or the country or region where one is conducting the study, because to help in better decision making.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And I think that will come up in at least in the ATNI's case study around the challenges of data in different contexts. We face very different challenges. Great, thank you very much. And Anjali, is this an old hand or a new hand?
It's a new hand.
Perfect. Great.
So, yeah, I agree with Shweta and Ifyoma and some additional points. It's good to have the research grid prior to starting the data collection and having the enough indicators. Sometimes we go for robust indicators if there is this time available, and sometimes we need detailing in case we are looking for a lot of description and triangulation and all the details. So it's always good to plan prior to data collection and in the planning phase and know the indicators you want and triangulate them. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Really helpful to get us sort of thinking about these issues. And I think with this, I'm going to turn us back to our case studies. Maybe just a few points that came up for me is around sort of the using context-specific data. Is it more data or is it better data? And then what is better data? How can you use it to make better decisions? Choosing, having the right indicators, and that it can't always be that we need more. At a certain point, we need to get on and make decisions, and the context specific is quite critical. So with that, I'm going to flip back to our presentation and turn it over to my colleague, Indra, who will be taking us through ATNI's product profile dashboard.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend this Academy Lab, and also thank you for inviting me. I'll be going through the Etni's product profile dashboard. My presentation for 5 minutes will mainly focus on what we have in the dashboard, what is our focus for the data that is being fed into the dashboard, and why we developed this dashboard. So if we go to the next slide. So what we have currently in the product profile dashboard is the product data of like 130,000 product data, including 25 that are assessed in 25 plus countries and 30 plus largest food and beverage companies. And the main focus is on packaged food and commercially manufactured foods from F&B companies to retailers. And our data sources mainly focus from the purchase data as well as from the company data, and sometimes we even go on-site collection to fill in the data gaps that we would have from LMI's data limitations from LMIC. And as I put it in the presentation as well, there are of course limitations on the informal sector, not included within the assessment, as well as the data that we do not have from some countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and other contexts. And in the next slide, the video will be showing a few clip of what the product profile data is available in Kenya and under which nutrient profile models, and how that compares to the global data. It's a very short video on how we have assessed the product data for Kenya in different nutrient profiling model in different assessments. And of course, you can go to the QR code to the dashboard. So yes, and why we developed this dashboard is, as we have discussed previously, we have a lot of data. It's just fragmented data as well, and we want to centralize it into accessible data. But even if it is accessible, what are we gonna do with it? We cannot make any sense of it, and if it is stagnant, then it's just pretty useless, if I have to say so myself. So we make it into a dashboard to make it more actionable, so that it can help in decision making, monitoring, comparability, which also includes qualitative data and quantitative data. And I think last year we also have a presentation on the Kenya and Tanzania one, where we have different dashboard for different country studies, but now we consolidate it into one big product profile data from both Kenya and Tanzania, including our results from global indexes and our recent results from the retail assessments.
So if you were at the ANH Academy in Dar es Salaam last year, you would have seen the Kenya and Tanzania one. So this builds off that.
And that will be it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. So we now turn the floor over to Diane and Elisa. I believe Elisa will be presenting, and just let me know when you need the slide changed.
No, actually, I'm presenting.
Diane is presenting. Apologies,
Yeah.
Diane. Presenting.
No, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We are going to talk about our case about indicated guidelines for food and nutrition security. And as Kat already said, Elise will be my co-host for this session. Can we have the next slide? So this session is based on the indicator guidelines for food and nutrition security and diet that's currently under revision. We will discuss the selection and understanding appropriate in nutrition indicators for measuring agriculture or nutrition sensitive projects results based on context, data availability, and decision making. A little bit reflecting some of the issues that came up in the previous session, so that's quite nice. We are using a case project called Mama Sasha, which is actually a project aiming to improve health and nutrition through an integrated orange/feed potato production and health service delivery model. So that's what we start with, swinging the discussion. So what are we going to do in this session? Next slide, please. We're going to explain briefly the set of indicators available on diet quality, food security, income, and women's empowerment. Then we present the case of Mama Sasha. Then, of course, we have a Q&A. And then what we're going to discuss in this session is really what results we want to measure, how can we select the appropriate indicators, decision trees, which I will go into in the next slide. What does the data tell us about the results of the project? What is the role of AI? And how do these indicators support learning adaptive program design? Next slide, please. And this is also the last slide. So here is the decision tree that we just updated. And on the left side, you see the different questions that you can ask yourself if you're designing or implementing projects. And then on the right side, you see the different indicators that we have selected that have been validated. So these are, and some of these indicators are also indicators under the SDGs. So in the first box, you see really the indicators for the diet results. And that's really the minimum dietary diversity for women, the minimum adequate diet for young children, and the global dietary recommendations among women of reproductive age that goes into healthy and unhealthy foods. And then the second box on the right side, you will see the more food security objectives, which is the month of adequate food provisioning at household level, the food insecurity experience skill, the household food insecurity access skill, and the FIAS, I think is the SDG one. And then we have the one for women's empowerment, which is the women's empowerment for natural statistics. And then we're looking a little bit at the living income. Is like living income is really seeing if families have enough money and income to actually have a decent life. So that's a little bit what we are going to discuss. And of course, we are inviting you for this session. And we also would like to very much hear what you are struggling with. And so thank you very much. And I'm handing over to Valerie from CARE to go into their Cascade program.
Yes, thank you so much, Diane, and everyone. Welcome. We are happy to engage with you. I'm here in the room with my colleague Sarah Harris, who is the program director for Cascade. My name is Valeria Pecchioni. I'm the meal coordinator for this program. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, also the next, sorry. You can go ahead. Yeah, great. No, sorry, one back. Yes, great. So just to briefly introduce Cascade, Cascade is a multi-country, multi-year program which is implemented in 6 African countries: Benin, Ethiopia, Kenya, Mozambique, Nigeria, and Uganda. Is implemented by a consortium led by CARE and GAIN and funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are working at different levels, at the policy level, but also more link at the community and also with the private sector. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, so Cascade is a very ambitious program. We are aiming to increase access and consumption of healthy diets and increase households' resilience. So we have these two main strategic objectives, and we mostly focus on women of reproductive age and children and adolescents under 15 years old. Cascade also works in 5 key domains. As I mentioned, we work at a policy level, trying to strengthen nutrition policy development and implementation. We work to support, engage the private sector in a way that is supportive to nutrition. And we work with to ensure that there are community structures that are stronger and that women are empowered, and also that the whole system is integrated and connected. This is also reflected and put some of challenges also in the selection of the methods and indicators that we want to use as we work in so many different dimensions. We can go to the next slide. So to develop our results framework, as I mentioned, Cascade is implemented in different countries. From the global theory of change, all country teams went through a contextualization of the theory of change. And despite they all have the same 2 goals that I mentioned before, and they work in the 5 domains, they definitely use different approaches and have developed a set of different activities. So this is quite reflected in our indicator structure and results framework. So we have a key standard and internationally recognized, as Diane already mentioned, indicators to measure our long-term outcomes. We have 5 standard indicators for the intermediate outcomes, looking at our 5 domains. 2 of them are, let's say, developed outside Cascade and scientifically validated, and 3 are program specific. While at the level of immediate outcomes, country teams adapted the one that were suggested to better reflect their approaches, and at the output level, they independently develop according to the activities that they had in their own plans. So this flexibility, this approach, of course, I wanted to be really conscious of the different contexts, but also bring to us at least some challenges that we would like to discuss with you in the session later. So how can we balance the context, the relevance of certain indicator with making them still comparable and for the whole program across the different countries. Also, the fact that we use some robust methodologically sound indicator sometimes is a trade-off with because these indicators are demanding in terms of time of resources, while maybe some simpler metrics are easier to collect, but maybe are not perfect to capture the complexities of a certain concept. And also we want to discuss a bit with you how the methodological rigor that is required for certain indicator can be balanced with the needs of the implementation and to really support adaptive management and learning of our teams. So if you recognize some of these challenges or you have solutions or develop solutions to those, we would really like to have you in our session and discuss those with you. Thanks so much, and I'll pass to Beatriz.
Thank you so much, Valeria. So today, you can go to the next slide, Catherine. So I'm here presenting together with my colleague Marielle on the food systems dashboard. On the next slide. The food systems dashboard. We are also talking on behalf of our main contact point within GAIN, Rebecca McLaren. So she's the expert within this particular project. So if you have further questions besides what we're going to discuss, you can reach out to her. And this is a project co-led by GAIN, by Johns Hopkins University, FAO, and the Cornell College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. On the next slide, we are going to explain why was the importance of creating such a food systems dashboard. So as most of you already know and already experiences, we have indeed a lot of data already. But it's regarding food systems, but it's scattered and fragmented in different sources. So there was a need, especially for policymakers, to have everything in just one specific hub, just where they can easily within easy access with a tool, they could find out what was the current challenges of their specific country or specific region. And the aim was then combine all those official sources, as you see here, some examples of those, into just one user-friendly tool. Into the next slide, please. This is the team that created and is responsible for the food systems dashboard. As you can see, it's an interdisciplinary multi-institution partnership, and this aim is to really cover as the broader sources of information as we can through all the different food systems components. So here you included environment, agriculture, nutrition, as much broad as we can to have the information needed for the food systems transformation. In the next slide, we're going to just present a snapshot of what the food systems framework is in the dashboard. This was launched in 2020, and it has already provided more than 200,000 users with high quality data and this analysis to support the food systems transformation. This is based on the three different pillars: description, where you can view at the global level, but also more specifically at the country level, diverse indicators spanning from different aspects of the food systems. Based on that description, you can then identify and diagnose what are the different country-specific data that needs more priority, the current challenges that that specific food systems of the country is facing, where we can create more interventions, policies into that. And based on that diagnosis, this dashboard already indicates some actions that could be implemented to give already like a starting point of some potential interventions and policies at local and national level. On the next slide, I'm going to present just a quick overview of the quantity and the overview of the different indicators that you have. This is based on a previous framework created on the regarding food systems itself. As said before, this is includes a diversity of different sources, and so far we are able to include almost 300 indicators, which is a growing process. Every year when we have new information, new data, new monitoring, this is also updated and included in the dashboard. And the indicators ranges from the different food systems components, but also includes drivers, includes different cross-cutting themes into our analysis. So the idea is really to have a broader overview of how the food systems globally and at country level is, and what can we make as a society in our different roles towards a food systems transformation. So this is just a briefly explanation of the food systems dashboard itself, but on the session that you're going to have, we are going to dive deeper on how we can make use, because it's such a complex and comprehensive tool that it can be a bit daunting to navigate it. So we're going to explain how you can find the different information and as well make use of one example of one specific country, just to see if you're interested to make use of it as policymaker or as a civil society implementer, how you can make use of such a comprehensive tool to your particular aim. So if you're interested, you can join in our session. So I give it over to you, Kat, and thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, everyone. Really nice overviews. And yeah, you've heard the pitches now. So now is the opportunity to make the decision what you would like to focus on for the next 30 minutes. So as we discussed with the group work, we will have 2 rotations. So you've heard 4 case studies. You'll have the opportunity to dive deep into 2 of them. So choose with the group that you're most interested. You can think for yourself. And just as a very brief recap, looking at private sector and the healthiness of their product portfolio. So that's focusing on the biggest multinationals. That will be here with AT&I looking at our product profile dashboard. Do you want to look more at really specific programming? Do you have a program that you want to implement? You're trying to think of what indicators do we want to use? That would be with Diane and Elise in their session, looking at the indicator manual. Are you interested in questions of, oh, I've got this project, it's happening in all these different countries, the context is different, how do I contextualize while keeping things comparable? Then you'll be going with the team from Care Netherlands. And if your question is, okay, I want to step back, big picture, how do I use all of the data that is available from the food system dashboard and use it into something that I can answer really practical questions, then you'll be with Beatrice and Mariella in that group. So I believe right now we will have the groups coming up and you have to choose your group yourself and you just click join group. And just as a warning, once you click join group, then you'll get sucked there immediately. So commit and then there's no going back. So if you scroll, you have to scroll down to the bottom and then you'll see the groups there. And if you fall out, Nola will be in the main session and she can help you get back into the correct room. We'll have 30 minutes there, and after the 30 minutes, we'll come back and there'll be a brief break, and then you can rejoin another group.
If you're not
Hello. While we are waiting for everyone to come back, Diane will be doing a closing for us, but I did prepare a final few mentee questions. So maybe we could use this time, this sort of awkward time while we wait for people to come back. And I will share. Let me see if I now progress to the next mentee. It's the same mentee. So if you were here at the start of the session and you go back to whatever gadget you were using, you should still be there. Actually, yeah, there's a question around AI. I don't know if this, in our session, actually, I thought we would talk a lot about it. We actually didn't, but maybe interesting, didn't really come up at all. We had a lot of interesting conversations. This wasn't it, but then maybe interesting to hear people's summaries if this was something that came up. So as you're dropping back in, if you want to jump on the Menti, and then no one's there yet.
I just put the link in the chat again as well.
Ah, perfect. And if you scan the QR code, the QR code.
Yeah. Shall I take it over, Kat?
Yes, I was just using the dead time for people to fill in the Menti.
Yeah.
Go for it, Diane.
So we have about 40 minutes left. I'm not sure everybody's back yet. We have 31 people. Yeah, I think so. So I hope you found your session very, very informative. And you also had, we have in the second session, we had a lot of discussions about it. So it's also a little bit finding the right people for the questions that we had. As Kat already mentioned, we continue with the Mentimeter and then maybe say what are the greatest opportunities to use new technologies like AI. And then we have a couple of more questions. I'm not sure how many questions do we have as a wrap up. So please.
We have 3 questions. I can also skip. I mean, I was saying to the group, we thought this would be a big discussion point. For our group, it wasn't.
No,
we had a lot of good discussions, but this wasn't it.
No, for us neither. We had good discussions and
then we jump ahead and get people's key learnings
in
the session.
I think that's good. That's good. So if you briefly can say what is your key learning or takeaway from this session, and that's from your sessions, just drop it on the Mentimeter. If you want to open your microphone and do it plenary, you also are welcome to do so, because not everybody, I think, has maybe the energy left to fill in, to type in text. The importance of good data, very good. Anybody else wants to, I see somebody in the chat, and that is Nola. It's important to look at sources of the data, the dashboard. Very good. Anybody wants to, the one that said importance of good data, do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? I'm not sure who it was. Or everybody's busy in typing. The role of data informing the policy and provide comparative analysis. There is a more complicated topic, needs more time for discussions and questions. Yes, it's always generate questions. In the first session that we had is really, we had a balance of between, is it a research project or is it really an implemented project? So there's already decisions that you need to take. And that also gears towards what kind of indicators you are able to use. There are enough indicators already. Learn how to choose and contextualize them to make fit to purpose, for purpose. Maybe going back to Elisa from the university, do you think there are enough indicators already?
Oh, that's a difficult
Tricky
question.
question.
Yeah. I would love to explore more about the usability and the application of the indicators that we have, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Using data to develop actionable projects in the case of Kenya OSP program. Seasonal as a key consideration in collecting data. Yes, that's also important. Especially if food production is very seasonal, then that's definitely something that I'm not sure if seasonality is such a big indicator for the Netherlands, for instance. I'm not sure what my colleagues thinks about it, because we sort of probably 80% of our food is all year around available. There will be some differences, but maybe we can go to the next slide, Kat. Or what critical questions remains for you? I assume that the other question still remains open, even if we go to this one. Correct, Kat, or not?
Don't think so, but you can pop it in the chat if you suddenly feel inspired.
What critical question remains for you? Now you have gone through one of the four, and unfortunately, which is always the case in these kind of settings, that you could not attend all four of them, because I think then also four of them will also help you to sort of build upon the different information, or maybe in the case of between the indicator group and the cascade group, some of the indicators that we discussed in our group were more elaborated in the cascade case. So that would be useful as well. And we had quite a different level of cases. I think there are no critical questions remained,
We solved all the questions. Maybe I can jump in here with a critical question that came out of our group. So we were discussing, we analyzed the different products, and someone asked, well, what about products that are discontinued in certain markets because they're too high in fat or salt or sugar, or do they end up in other markets? And then how can we sort of check that if they're sold through the informal market? So it was an interesting question. Thought, yeah, interesting. Could we track, what products, we know what products are being discontinued, but then what happens to them? Are we sure they're discontinued in all markets? So that was a key question that came up for us that we thought maybe we'll try to dig deeper into that one.
Yeah, the question critical that they put on the board is, thank you for that, Kat. The countries who have not yet data, what happens with them? Yeah, that's always the issue. Because we also see, and we had quite a bit of discussion preparing for this learning lab, is that we also see that sort of overall financing for nutrition is reducing, and especially and that also has an impact on money to collect data. So we see a lot of countries that have no data yet are often using outdated data, or they don't have data, and I don't think that we can do anything with them, because it requires quite a bit of organization, money, but also capacity to do all this. I'm not sure if anybody else of the Maybe Valeria, did you have in your 6 countries any countries that didn't have sufficient data for your projects?
I mean, definitely there might be differences in the different, let's say, sub-country levels in terms of, yeah. The indicator I refer to are indicators that for which we collected data. So we didn't face any case in which some countries, yeah, didn't have any data. But yeah, I can imagine that for engaging on different aspects and on some specific productions, this might be the case, that there might be some areas or some elements that are lacking. But yeah, in our case, the key indicators were collected in all the 6 countries in different locations.
And maybe, Diane, to also come in from our side, because one of the challenges we face is getting private sector data in certain mostly low-income contexts, is doing more crowdsourcing of data. So we discussed using Open Food Facts, which if people haven't seen, check it out. You can go to Open Food Facts, and then you can use citizen science, so crowdsourcing, to scan labels. And then this gets imported into a data set. So it's really interesting with the group of international people here. You can use it in your own country. Depending on how developed the database is, you can also use it, for example, in a country that has a lot of data. You can scan a label and it will tell you how processed the product is, its health star rating, its Nutri-Score. You can also learn maybe alternatives. It will say, like, actually, if you're thinking of buying this product or that product are healthier. Or if you don't have a lot of data, it could be really helpful if you start doing that, and then over time the database will build. So also an interesting opportunity to start crowdsourcing data that doesn't require as expensive data collection activity, at least for private sector data.
Thank you. And then I want to address the question that's on the board. It's not clear to me that existing indicators capture change due to intervention, especially behavior change intervention target specific behaviors rather than a whole diet. I think there has been quite a number of studies done, and I think one of the key elements, and I think it's also especially in nutrition sensitive programming, and I think it's also one of the 10 recommendations from FAO, is that whatever interventions we do in agriculture, it always have to be compared with behavior change communication, because the uptake of the changes are much better if you have that. They have done quite a bit of research, and it also comes out of some of the reviews, the big reviews that they have done on nutrition sensitive agriculture, so that use agricultural interventions to increase the quality of the diet. So there are 2 related. They're always related, and it's recommended that you include behavior change interventions for better uptake of the messages. Then I think we have there are quite a number of resources shared in the chat. So Natalia says sharing our World Bank analysis is how to unlock climate finance for nutrition projects, particularly looking into adapting funds. Happy to share more of the resource if anybody's interested. Thank you very much, Natalia. I'm definitely interested. And then she also says dual challenges, share wins. Unlocking climate finance for nutrition is very important. We all struggle with that. Yes, I think that brings us to the end of the session. We have 3 minutes left, so I'm quite happy that we actually made it in time in the 2 hours. It has been a long sit. I just want to thank you all that were here to attend. We are very happy that you came and joined us, although we also know the challenges of joining these kind of learning labs. So thank you very much. I believe the recording is being put on in the Academy website. Then I also want to thank the facilitators, your colleague in the room, Indira. I find it sorry that I pronounce your name incorrectly. Elise, Valeria, Sarah, Beatrice, Marielle, you also Kat. Did I miss somebody? Thank you very, very much for helping us to put this together. And we have a little bit of a thank you, a little present for thank you that we will make sure it gets to you one way or the other. Mariella, do you want to say what we have had in mind for this?
Yes, of course. We have a beautiful little box of tea that will come your way.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So then I would say